Hello, I want to solve the following word problem. The base of a 30-foot ladder is 10 feet from a building. If the ladder reaches the flat roof, how tall is the building? Round the answer to the nearest tenth of a foot. Now, because we have a word problem, we need to draw a picture, or at least it will usually help us. Now, what I have is a ladder leaning up against a building. So, here's my building, here's the ground, and there's the ladder. This doesn't have to be to scale, it's just a way of seeing what happens. Now, normally when you have a building, you get a right angle with the ground. Also, what I have is a 30-foot ladder, and since this is the ladder, that means that this side of this right triangle here is 30, and it's 10 feet from the building. In other words, this distance here is 10. What this wants to know is how tall is the building. So what I can do is I can define the height of the building to be x. So I'm going to let x equal the height of the building. Okay, so the question is, what's the relationship between all these numbers and variables? Well, it's the Pythagorean theorem because this is a right triangle. Now, the only question really is, which side is the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is always opposite of the right angle. Here's the right angle, and the other side away from it is the hypotenuse. So it means that 30 is the hypotenuse here. So this means that x squared plus 10 squared is equal to 30 squared. Now, the only thing you have to remember is that the hypotenuse is over here by itself. And the other two doesn't really matter. I could have done this as 10 squared plus x squared. It's just up to you. Then you simplify. So it gives you x squared plus 100 is equal to 900. Then you subtract 100 from both sides, so x squared is equal to the square root of 800. Excuse me, not the square root of 800, but 800. Now I take the square root of both sides, so x is going to be equal to plus or minus the square root of 800, at least mathematically. But because this is a word problem, I reject the negative. In other words, x is just the square root of 800. Now, at this point, you need to type this into the calculator because it wants us to round the answer. And so go ahead and get your calculator out. In case you've forgotten, here's the calculator, and here's how you type in a square root. Now it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a square root symbol here. Basically it's the opposite of the x squared. So I'm going to type in the second x squared, which gives me the square root symbol, and then type in 800, and then click enter. And this gives me 28.28427.125. Now, what it wants me to do is the nearest tenth of a foot, and remember the first tenth is the first decimal. Therefore, because this hundredth place is an 8, I need to round this up. Therefore, it's 28.3. Therefore, the height, EIGHT, is about 28.3 feet. And yes, notice because this is a word problem, I answer in a sentence.